I'm very fortunate to be joined today by Sean Garrity, the director of the new hilarious and maybe some will say very relatable film, The End of Sex. Sean, how are you today?
Great. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. So right off the jump, I've got to ask, Justin Chernick, Emily Hampshire, you've worked with them before. What is it with you guys and your obsession with sex? Because we've got The End of Sex. You were in a film together. You guys did a film together several years ago called My Awkward Sexual Adventure. I imagine there can only be a trilogy down the road. So what?
It's yeah.
So what is it about sex that keeps bringing you guys back together?
Well, ultimately it's Jonas's scripts. Jonas is the writer, and he brings these projects to me, and he's very tickled by a lot of that stuff, and he manages to turn it into really relatable, very funny screenplays that then we spend some time working on, and I add what I can add, and Emily comes on board and she adds what she can add when she's on set, and it becomes a real product of all of us. But the origin, no question about it, is Jonas Chernick.
There you go. There you go. Okay, so if you wouldn't mind, a brief synopsis of The End of Sex. What is the film about?
Yeah, it's the story of a couple and their kids go away to camp. And it's the first time that they have been alone since they've become parents. And so they're like, oh my God, we got to sex it up, open every door in the house. We can be as loud as we want now. And they try to like just go back to who they were before they had kids. Like, so many of us feel like, you put your life on pause, you do your parent thing for 18 years or whatever, and then you pick up where you left off.
Mhm.
But part of, I guess, maturing gracefully is coming to the realization that you can't really do that. And that's what these guys do when they have sex and it's really kind of meh. Then they sort of go, oh my God, what happened to us? What's wrong? And they spend a week while their kids are away trying to somehow spark themselves back to their previous lives and get their old mojo back. And they try a threesome, they try a sex club, they try all sorts of stuff. Of course, it all goes hilariously, devastatingly wrong.
Now, I think that's part of the appeal of it because you've made a film again that I think a lot of people will find relatable because you think to yourselves as relationships go on and kids come into the picture, you're bringing this kid to practice, you're bringing that kid to recitals and things of that nature. The time for the couple starts to dwindle. So, you've made a film that's extremely relatable, but you've also made a film that's extremely funny as well. And I wanted to know, like, was that always the thought process to make sure there was a comedy, like the comedy was at the forefront, that you never wanted to steer too serious with this project?
Absolutely. And it's something that is part of the development process in script, but also on set and also in editing, where we are constantly trying to hone it and hone it and hone it and get just to the bare bones of the story so that it moves quickly and it never sort of labors a point, but also so that it's funny all the way through. I remember when I was a kid, I saw this movie Big. You remember that movie? The
Mhm,
American movie Big,
absolutely. Yeah.
right? I remember when I was a kid seeing it and going like, the first two-thirds of that movie are really funny, and then it's like the joke mill just dries up or they stop pumping it or something, and there's this kind of very formulaic Hollywood approach sometimes to comedies where they leave their last 30 minutes to just deal with the drama and deal with the characters' issues, and it's not funny anymore. And as a
Hmm.
guy who, paid in those days, I don't know, what was it, 25 cents? What do we pay to see movies? I can't even remember. I
Yeah.
paid whatever I paid to see the movie, and you're like, but I paid to see a comedy. What's going on?
Hmm.
And so I've always been very conscious when I do a comedy to keep it funny and even look at those moments of, because you need to have those moments, I think, when to relate to a character, moments of vulnerability, moments of the dark night of the soul. But how do I keep it funny and manage to still make it authentically painful, really, for the characters? And that
Hmm.
was something that I worked very hard on this movie.
Now, I teased it at the beginning, but obviously there's a great collaboration with the three of you. So because you've worked before, there seems to be a certain level of familiarity. So, for example, the on-screen couple of Jonas and Emily just blends in so believably, right? Like you look at this and you're like, of course, this makes sense. So, from a behind the scenes standpoint, the collaboration with you with the three of you, can you take a moment and talk about that? Because again, the finished product just looks so effortless. and I don't want to take anything away from the hard work. If anything, that's a compliment. How you got it to look so effortless. So tell me about how that collaboration it just continues to work for the three of you.
Oh, I mean, listen, that part of it is in fact effortless. I mean,
Yeah.
those, the three of us get together to do a scene and we're just like giggly with delight that we get to do it again. Because we did, of course, the movie that you referenced, My Awkward Sexual Adventure, that the Americans retitled An Awkward Sexual Adventure because movies
Ah.
that start with A make more money.
Oh, okay.
Um, but we also did a film in 2016 with Joey King and Kevin Pollak called Borealis that Jonas and Emily were a part of, and they played on an on-screen couple in that movie as well.
Okay.
And so when we get together, yeah, it is like it's like we're pressing pause and picking up from where we left off every film, and
Mhm.
it allows us to kind of get deeper, and there's a real sense that we all have permission to throw stuff in, because I'm the director. I'm not precious about where I want it to go. I'm not precious about some things, but people can throw ideas and I'll take them. And Jonas, as the writer, incredibly generous. People throw ideas out for different lines and improv, and he's not one of these guys who's like, wait, no, that's not what I wrote. And so the three of us get together and it really does feel like a collaboration that continues the collaboration that we did on our other films. And I guarantee you it is as effortless as it looks.
It's amazing. Now we're in this interesting time right now as movie theaters, of course, open again. People are able to go to the cinema. Your wonderful work is going to be seen on a big screen. But I'm also noticing that we're seeing a lot of Canadian films getting distribution. If we were to rewind the clock a couple of like even pre-COVID, to go to a theater and see this many Canadian films at a Cineplex, at a Landmark, at independent theaters, what have you, we're definitely seeing a spike. What do you attribute that to? Because I think it's fantastic.
It's great. And there are a couple of things. I mean, one thing I think is, of course, the very optimistic way of looking at it is it's a really, this year especially, but the past couple of years have been really great years for Canadian cinema. And this year you've got a whole bunch of really great by any measure films from Canada in cinemas, not only in Canada, but in the States and in Europe and, all over the place, which is great.
Mhm.
And really makes you feel like you're part of a movement of some kind, which is also really, really exciting. The other thing, though, is that, I mean, because I've been at this for a while, I do notice that Canadian distributors do tend to dump their movies in March and April in cinemas. Like March and
Okay.
April is that's Canadian cinema time.
Okay.
They have trouble getting screens in American blockbuster season. They have trouble getting scenes in Oscar season. They have trouble getting screens at the Christmas rush. And so it leaves kind of a little window post festival in the fall and a little window in the spring. And certainly what I've noticed is every time I take on a Canadian distributor to do my theatrical distribution for me, first thing out of their mouth is like, great, so we'll launch it in March. And you're like, oh, again, why don't we try some? But I get it. I mean, I get it. I would love to counter program and have a Canadian film in cinemas in July,
Mhm.
right? Because not everyone wants to watch the Avengers, and you want to have
Fair.
something else, But it's one thing to say that I would like to put my film there. It's another thing for Cineplex to agree to a Canadian distributor's request to put a film in that they, ultimately may not have confidence that we're going to put $35 million into our marketing campaign like the Avengers do.
Mhm. No, that's fair. That's fair. I have to say though, I hope this is seen by as many people as possible. I think it is brilliantly funny. I think it is very accurate. I think it's one of those situations where a lot of people will see this movie and then kind of look to their spouse and there'll be that, that kind of like that unspoken understanding. So I think to the credit to you, cast and crew have done a phenomenal job with this film. What has been some of the because obviously you've had the opportunity. It was like I said, it was playing at the Toronto International Film Festival. It's been screened. What has been some of the feedback that you've received with the film?
Well, my favorite piece of feedback, actually, because we try and collect pull quotes from the various different, you try and keep track of as many reviews and stuff as you can. From audiences, it's been obviously very, very enthusiastic. One of the great things about a comedy as opposed to a drama is when you sit in the cinema with people watching it, you can hear them laugh.
Mhm.
As opposed to a drama where you're like, are they digging it? Are they not digging it?
Yeah.
But and this has been a lot of very loud laughter to the extent that sometimes they'll laugh and kill like 6 subsequent jokes because they're still laughing at like the big one.
Yeah.
Um, but I think my favorite press so far has been, and I can't put it on a poster, but I would love to. I'm going to read it because I actually have it right here on my other screen.
Sure.
Uh, from a reviewer in Glasgow, he wrote, "The End of Sex is the sort of raunchy rom-com Judd Apatow might make if he ever allowed an editor to do their job."
Oh, wow. I like
Because
that.
when we were making the film and money people were like, so what's it gonna, what's it gonna feel like? What's it gonna look like? We were like, it's gonna feel kind of like a Judd Apatow film, except a little more this, a little more that. Like start there and then kind of imagine more this way. Is kind of how we pitched it. To have a reviewer sort of catch that and make that comparison was very encouraging.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, again, very impressed with the film. And this is a film that I had the opportunity of seeing back just before TIFF last September, and finally getting its release. So if I've been waiting a while for it to come, I can only imagine how you guys feel. So
Yes.
congratulations on that. I want to be respectful of your time, but of course, it wouldn't be a Keith Whittier interview without a little bit of rapid fire. So if you would indulge me for some fun
Oh,
rapid fire questions. First
sure.
question, and again, in your position, you can't name one of your own films, but what first question of rapid fire is always, what is your favorite movie of all time? And if you can't come up with one, I'll be more than happy to accept a top three.
Oh, well, you know, I have been asked this question before, and so I have my ready-made answer,
Love it.
which is a Chinese film from the 1990s that was called To Live. It was by Zhang Yimou, who went on to do Hero and House of Flying Daggers, that guy. But one of his films when he was still making movies in China, he made it with the great Gong Li. And when they premiered it at Cannes, the Chinese government forbade them from making films together for 5 years. But it is perfect in every way. It's just a great film. I actually had the great pleasure of showing it to my daughter a little while ago. Uh,
Wonderful.
anyway, I don't want to de-rapidize your rapid
No,
fire, but that's my answer
no,
to that one, man.
that's okay.
To
No time restraints, no bad answers in rapid fire. So you go ahead.
Yes, To Live without an exclamation mark, because there is To Live with an exclamation mark, which is by Akira Kurosawa, also a brilliant film.
Mhm.
But a black and white film from much earlier in Kurosawa's career. But that's without the exclamation mark. It's a Chinese film from the 90s.
Okay. Have you taken a moment to think that after many couples see this film, they are going to feel that they need to reignite that spark, and in several months there are going to be what I would call end of sex slash Sean Garrity babies popping up? How do you take responsibility for that?
I absolutely do. Yes, I do. You know,
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Who would you like to collaborate with that you haven't had the opportunity to?
oh wow. That's a great question. That's so many people. My God. There are like I would love to work with the cinematographer Andre Turpin,
Okay.
whose work is brilliant, and I'm a huge fan. Recently he's only working in Montreal, so it's hard for me to make that happen. I mean, I would love to work with Matt Hannum, the Canadian editor, who's also a fantastic talent. And when you start with actors, there's just an endless stream of brilliant actors who I would love to work with. Yeah, that's like a 2 hour. That's not a rapid fire question. That's like a 2 hour long. That's a big one.
Okay. Now, so when you watch a film, so for example, if you go into a Cineplex and this film is playing, do you identify yourself after and say, "Hey, I'm the person who made it," or are you pretty good at being able to stay low key?
Oh man, well, it depends on like tomorrow night when it premieres, I will be here in Winnipeg where I live.
Okay.
And I'll be
A little
presenting it and
different.
talking to
Yeah.
people. Yeah, it's also I can't really get away in Winnipeg
Yeah.
with but no, I love if I'm ever in a film where one of my movies is playing by for whatever reason and people don't know who I am, I love to just sit there and listen to them and watch them react. My favorite thing, this is creepy. I don't mean to creep people out, but this is my favorite thing is like halfway through the movie or before that to go to the bathroom or pretend to go to
Okay.
the bathroom and come back and hang out just at the front of the cinema where you can sort of see people
Yeah.
and I just stand there and watch the movie. I've seen the movie already. I know how it
Yeah.
ends. I love to watch people watch it and just because I think like all of us, I would assume who are making movies, I'm still learning, and still want to make a better movie on my next one. And so I really get a lot from watching people watch the film.
Yeah. No, not creepy at all. I think that genuine, authentic reaction. So I can totally appreciate that. What would people be surprised to know about you?
I worked full time as a bass player for 10 years before I started making movies.
Okay.
That was my job. I paid the
Okay.
rent with that. Um, and that as a result, my little like Hitchcock like cameo that I do in all my films is I play bass on at least one track of
Okay.
every soundtrack.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Well, I'm sure the guys from Rush missed you, but I'm sure your contributions to the group were great. I want to end with this. What advice would you give to an emerging filmmaker?
Oh, I would actually borrow Alain René's advice. This is like from the 1960s when this French director was asked this question, which is just make the movie. That's like the best advice you could give to any filmmaker. I think there's always 1,000 reasons why you shouldn't make the movie, and there's always a million reasons why you can't make the movie, and there's just as many people telling you that you can't make the movie. But ultimately, if you are convinced by any of that, then you're not a filmmaker. The only way you become a filmmaker is by just making the movie.
Love that. Love that. And I appreciate your time so much. The name of the film, The End of Sex. I honestly feel it should be like The End of Sex, a marriage story, but oh, that's just my opinion. Fantastic, fantastic film. Congratulations on making a beautiful piece of cinema that is getting not only Canadian but US distribution. You've hit the holy grail, so congrats on that. I'm hoping as many people as possible can see it. It's going to be opening up this weekend. Sean Garrity, thank you so much again for the time. Really appreciate it, and all the best.
Thank you, sir.